Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and I'm so excited to have special guest Linda Tonnesen here with us today. This is part of the Seen, Known, and Heard series. As you all know, we've been sharing episodes based around the book that I've been working on, what it looks like to really see, know, and hear each other and ourselves. And so I am super excited to have Linda on because the work that she's been doing throughout her life has been just a really massive part of how people can see, know, and hear themselves. And so, Linda, would you just give us a brief intro about you and just about your work?
Oh, sure. Thanks. Thanks for having me on your show. I started this work, the work that I do, which is emotional and spiritual growth. I'm a facilitator. I'm a certified facilitator, but I'm not a therapist. And so I've gone more into the direction of inner healing through emotional work. And that always takes us into the spiritual because we're spiritual beings. So I started my own practice. I used to be in Illinois and did that for 15 years, seeing clients and working with them. The difference in what I do versus a therapist is that we take a targeted issue. I start with what do you want to have happen? And then we go from there and work towards that thing. So most of the people we see for maybe 6 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks, and then maybe come back a year later with another thing. But it's not an ongoing thing, but it gets people free from where they're stuck. And that's the point of what I do, to help people get unstuck in life and in relationships. So in that, I began to work with another lady that in Illinois, and we developed a women's weekend. And it's very intense, like a boot camp, but we take it from where people are and help them get all the way down into their hearts and souls and find out what those things are that we carry, and get some amazing life-changing healing. And it's a weekend, so by Sunday they go back to life, but changed. And I did that for 15 years. We did over 100 weekends, did it in Illinois and Texas and Colorado. And what we find that even 5 years later, those women that went to those weekends are still saying nothing has ever changed them like that. And you know what it is? They were seen and known and heard for maybe the first time in their whole life. So we are putting together, my daughter is a therapist here in Florida, and we're putting together a weekend like that. It's not the same thing. It's something a little different because I want to add more about God in it than we had done in the past. Because a lot of us we can get really stuck and not known and seen and heard by God. And then we come up with a story that, there's a reason that maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe that he's not who they said he was, or whatever. But whatever those blocks are, we're going to do a weekend, probably in March, here in Palm Beach area, and get into that, find out what's blocking us from being seen and known and heard from God, and knowing Him too. So that is the work right now. When I moved to Florida 10 years ago, I kind of semi-retired, and I now see a handful of clients on a regular basis. Whoever God brings to my door is who I see. I'm not pursuing a big practice, but still doing the work. And I've also written a curriculum for women that came out of our weekends, a four semester curriculum, starting from the basics with women. And we meet in small groups of 6 to 8 people, and take it step by step by step, and walk alongside each other and connect and learn and get tips and tools, and another way to implement this stuff into women's lives.
It's amazing.
So, in a nutshell, that's Linda.
I love it. I love it. And just for our listeners, I've experienced Linda. I've done private sessions with her, which have changed my life and definitely gotten a lot of freedom. I'm sure there will be many in the future because things always come up. And I've also been through the curriculum, and it's incredible. And I feel like everyone needs to know about this work and the work that you do and have devoted your life to. So I think the biggest thing, and I think where we share mission, is helping people get unstuck. So for me, it might look like in their lives from a leadership perspective, or it might look like in their businesses. But underneath all of that, like there's a layer down there. And the block down here to me is the most important. And that releases the layers right up here. So if you're a man too listening to this, don't stop listening. This isn't just for women. This is for people. And also, if you don't have faith and you're listening to this, don't stop listening, because I think there's a message for all of us today in the fact that we need to learn how to see, know, and hear ourselves. And so I would just invite you to be open as you listen to this episode, because I think there's just a lot that we can learn and gather. And so, Linda, as you were talking about, you referenced the subconscious mind. There's a lot like down in there, or down in our souls, the things that are hiding that maybe we haven't brought up to the surface. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and like how you view that? Like, why is that? Why do we get stuck? Why do we push things down, or maybe not even know that we're pushing them down?
So from the time that we're really little, we learn how to function in our family system. And there's certain traits that our parents knew from their parents, but there's certain traits that are not acceptable. And there's families that wouldn't let their little kids, their little boys especially, but girls too, don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. So we had to, all of us had something like that. Don't talk about the negative things. Be thankful, be grateful, all kinds of different ways. Don't ever be angry. Or maybe we learn not to ever be angry because one of our parents was so angry, we were scared. So we don't ever want to be like that. So those are the reasons then that we don't develop an intuition to know, oh, I'm feeling mad right now. So we call it something else, but it is an emotion and we do all have it. But if we were taught not to have it, we try to pretend we don't have it. Now, this all happens in the subconscious because what we learned is bad things happen if you're going to go around being angry, say if that was the message in the family. So then instead of saying, I am so angry, and getting what we need from the anger, which is something needs to change, instead of going that route, we try not to be angry. Okay, well, that comes out in all kinds of ways. It comes out that in relationships, it comes out in our work. When we are angry, but we don't know we're angry, we start manipulating and controlling things to get change. Because we don't use our anger to just say, I need change. Wow. So maybe that's one specific example of how it can come out. We call it coming out sideways. And we don't know we're doing it. It's because we buried it so deep in our subconscious. So by knowing what the feelings are, and I got it narrowed down to just 5. There's hundreds of words for feelings, but I believe they all fit in these umbrellas. And if you know what you're feeling, and we learn what each feeling needs, then when you get that feeling, it's a flag saying you need something. When you get what it needs, the feeling goes, it passes. So learning how to sense what we're feeling and letting that navigate us to get what we need is how we can move through hard situations without getting stuck.
I love that, because you just took the very emotional and made it also logical and tactical. So the fact that we can apply these tools to the emotions to move through hard things, and everybody can do this. That's the great part about this work. And you've simplified it down into these 5 emotions. Can you talk to us about the emotions and what they need? And if you're not taking notes right now, you probably want to get out this paper. This has changed my life.
And it's such a simple concept to learn and to understand, but it is very powerful because it's how we were created. We try not to feel, and that means we're trying not to have a navigation system. And it's like going across the country with no GPS. Like, you can figure it out, but you get lost. It's kind of the same idea. Okay, so the 5 feelings: glad, sad, mad, scared, and shame. So when we're glad, we need to share. We need to tell somebody when you win the lottery, you got to call somebody. You got to tell somebody. If you don't have anybody to call, you'll tell a stranger on the street, I won the lottery, right? But if we can't share, if there's a reason that there's nobody to share, it will turn immediately into sadness, because the realization of I've got nobody, I'm all alone.
Lonely.
That comes in right behind it. So, but when we're glad, we need to share. When we're sad, what we need is comfort. And comfort looks like walking alongside, sitting by me, give me a hug, tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me you're going to pray for me. Tell me you're going to, that you care. Let me talk about how sad I am, and tell me that, let me know that you care. A lot of times when somebody's sad and they start to tell their friends, the friend's instinct is to try to make them feel better.
Yeah.
So fix it, try to fix it so you're not sad. But if you're sad and somebody tries to make you feel better, it doesn't work. You end up getting mad at them, right? It's like, just forget it. I'll handle it myself. You don't get it. You don't get how sad I am, right? So sad just needs comfort. So it's a good thing to know about other people too. When they're sad, just go, oh, wow, you look so sad today. What's going on? And let them talk about how sad they are. And that's all. That's all you have to do. So glad, sad, and mad is the next one. When we're mad, we need to vent. First of all, mad has a lot of energy, a lot of physical energy. Our blood starts going, our heart starts pumping. So we need to get that out of our body a little bit.
Yeah.
So that we can think logically. When we try to think logically when we're really mad, we say things we probably shouldn't have said, or things that we have to go back and repair or apologize for, or we make decisions that weren't very smart. You start throwing your dishes in the kitchen and breaking everything because it feels good. However, then you have to go clean up all the dishes and all the mess. So life harder if you don't go vent somewhere where you don't make a big mess and then come back and talk about it. But what Mad's really telling you, the flag it's waving, is something needs to change. So you need, it means that our boundaries have been encroached on. Somebody took your stuff, or somebody is taking advantage of you in some way. So it usually just means a boundary needs to be set. And that's then when we get that, we say, hey, that was my hairbrush to my daughter, and when I went to use it, it wasn't there. What I'd like is for you to ask me first, so I know, and then put it back. And then she can say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'll do that. And I'm no longer mad. There's no mad there. It's okay. It's all done. So again, the emotion will pass. When we're scared, what we need is safety. We need someone to, either someone to help us to get safe or to get ourselves safe. When you hear a noise in the middle of the night, you need to turn on the light and see what the noise was. If it was a cat that jumped off the bed and scared you, then you're not scared anymore. Oh, that's all. If it's an intruder, you call the police, and the police come and they make your house safe, and then the fear is gone. Okay, so if we can get safe when we're scared, the fear will pass.
It's really good.
And then the last one is shame. Shame is the message that I'm not lovable. Just something wrong with me. I can't be lovable. And when we feel shame, which we all go into those places, what we need is validation, which would be somebody that we trust to tell us the truth, come back and remind us, no, I know you feel terrible about the way you handled that, but remember, you were trying to love them. Or remember last time you got in this situation, how you handled it and it turned out perfectly. Somebody that can remind us we're not unlovable, we're okay. Because we're starting to believe lies, that I'm a failure, I'm never going to get it right. So it can't be somebody that always says, are you kidding? You're the greatest. Because that doesn't help. It doesn't help. Because now you know that I'm not the greatest. So somebody that will say, yeah, that wasn't the best way to handle that, but you can fix this, or whatever the situation. So that's what shame needs. So that in a nutshell is everything that I do, everything that comes out of all the issues that I work with people, with couples, with marriages. It all comes back to that every time.
The
Once
stories
we
we're
know
telling
that,
ourselves, like the stories that we're telling ourselves.
the stories we tell ourselves when we're in those emotions. Like we don't even know we're telling ourselves stories till we know we're feeling scared.
Wow. And that comes from previous wounds in our lives.
Yes, all the
Right.
way back, sometimes forever. When I
Wow.
ask somebody when's the first time they remember that situation, they say forever. It was always there. And
Wow.
it feels normal, you know, as kids, everything we grew up with, we feels like that isn't that what everybody had?
Yeah.
The messages that we learn from that are what run our life from there on out.
And if we keep hitting the same walls, I think about this. I was in counseling like in my 20s, and I remember my counselor saying, you know, it's like when you get a cut, right? And then every time you hit that same spot, it doesn't
Yeah,
heal, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And so I
yeah,
always think about that in terms of patterns and like dynamics and things that we hit. If we keep hitting that same wall, we
yeah.
get more and more and more and more angry or sad or scared or whatever it is if we don't know how to process these five emotions and let them flow through us, right? You've talked about how many emotions we have throughout the day and like the emotion flow. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they scientists say that emotions, people that have studied this human psyche say emotions flow through us about every 4 minutes.
Wow.
That's a normal day. And mostly we don't have to think about it. We just thought of, you know, oh, I'm excited because tonight my friend's coming over for dinner. We feel happy. And then we start looking at the clock, oh, I'm going to be late for work if I don't get going. We start feeling a little scared because I got too much to do. And our whole day goes like that. And that is what makes us human. No other species has this kind of dynamic. So that is a normal flow. And I work with people that tell me they have no feelings.
Wow.
And sometimes what that is that they have felt all the feelings and couldn't process them and have just numbed. And that is a coping mechanism. It's like, I don't know what to do with all that I feel and I can't function that way. So I'm going to just stuff them all down and not feel any of them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they don't feel. And that's what they find out. Guess what? You're feeling them. You're feeling them big. You
You're
just
still
don't know
there.
it yet. So that that is that's a thing, is if we don't know that we feel them, we can't do anything about it. But if so yes, they flow through us every 4 minutes until we get stuck. You know, if something big happens at work, you know, we say that wrecked my whole day, you
Uh-huh.
know, because all of the emotions that came from that incident that happened, there's a lot to process. So they don't just flow, they keep going, they stay there. But all of them need to be looked at, that we feel. And as we get each one what it needs, then it goes. So that's how it gets caught up. It gets stuck because we didn't do anything. You know, I'm scared every day that I'm going to get fired, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Well, then I'm going to be scared every single day I go to work. I'm going to try hard, but I'm still scared. So that's the time to figure out what am I doing that makes me think I'm going to get fired, and do I need to talk to my boss and see if what I think they think of me is true? Maybe they're not even thinking that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But something needs to happen so I can get safe.
Nice. That's so good. I love that. Just such good thoughts. I could talk about this stuff all day. I had a thought too. I've always, and maybe some of our listeners have felt the same. Whenever I feel like growing up, I was taught that feelings, or maybe I wasn't taught, like my parents, the people around me didn't say this, but it was kind of implied that like feelings are not good. Like feelings get in the way. Feelings, you know, just create a sort of havoc. And so I always just kind of shoved them aside or tried to be tough or strong or put them away instead of actually processing them. And so I'm wondering how many people can relate to that. And can you talk about your view of feelings and how we've been given feelings and are created to have feelings, and how they can help us if they're functioning or if we're processing them in a healthy way?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, maybe a huge majority of people, learned um, from unspoken words, from parents that were doing their best and teaching what they learned, that those emotions, they just get in the way. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know. And then I don't know what to do with you, little girl, if you're going to be all emotional.
Yeah.
So stop it because I'm uncomfortable. Lots of reasons that we're taught that. And so that we know how to do that. It's a good coping skill to survive as a kid. Can't keep being emotional if nobody knows what to do with you. So you stop it. And um, the problem is we're created to have emotions. It's not possible not to, because that's how we process. When we see something, we have a feeling. From there, we get a message of what we believe about that or about ourselves. And we go out through life and live our whole life with those messages. So we can think we don't have them, but we do. And if we know that we do, it's the greatest tool of getting through difficult times, getting unstuck in situations. Even when you're thinking about what I'm going to do for Thanksgiving, I can start feeling fear because there's a lot to do. That's a signal to me I better start today, at least writing down my list. That will help my Thanksgiving go better. That's already a symptom coming up today that's going to help me if I follow it. If I ignore it and I don't do one thing about it till Wednesday night, yep, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Right? I won't be ready, and that will wreck my day.
So pay attention to those signals. Yeah. That's really good. Can you talk about how we can see, know, and hear ourselves more clearly, and how our lives might change if we were able to do that accurately?
Yeah. I think that is a lifelong process, number one. I think we're created to only see what we're supposed to see at the season that we're seeing it. I think
Interesting.
we can't just look and rip it open. I think there's a process, and that's for our own safety and protection. Some people never do look too deep inside. They just don't, and that works fine too. So life and kind of opens up things when it's time for us to start looking a little deeper. And so how to do that, again, it goes back to me, it goes back to the emotions, what's coming up. I keep getting stuck in the same situation, then what's going on? That's a clue, like you said. And then what am I feeling, and what am I really feeling? And when I'm honest with myself about that, and if I have a safe person in my life, I can be honest with them and say, here's what's going on with me today. And it's an amazing thing that then we provide safety for that person to go, oh, we're gonna be honest. Okay, good. And then they'll say something honest back because it's safe. So being known and heard, a lot of it is you. If you want that, you have to be that. That's so good. You're a safe person, meaning you're not going to judge. I'm not going to give you advice just because you're having a problem. I can't fix it for you. My ideas, you've probably already thought of them, but they don't need to be said. That's not the point. The point is being seen, not fixing my problem. So as we do that for ourselves, we learn how to give it to others, and they will give it back. And I think there's such a hunger for that all people are looking for that, men and women and teenagers and even little kids. Everybody wants to be heard, not judged, just heard and understood. It's a human need. Yeah,
that is so good. And talk to me a little bit about just God and how it works in your relationship, with him, and what that looks like. What does it look like for you in terms of being seen, known, and heard by him? And where do you think sometimes we can get messed up in that connection with like the creator? Like, where do you think sometimes there's just stuff that gets in the way? I mean, I know for sure people get in the way of that.
Right. And religion gets in the way. Yeah. I mean, you hear the word church hurt a lot. People that tried it out and it didn't go well, and they're done with that idea. And that's kind of my passion for people that have been kind of disillusioned about God, whether it's from a church or anybody else, but being stuck. And I think it's my passion because that was me the perfect girl who did it all right until my life fell apart. And then I had to start looking at who's the real God. Like, who am I even praying to? And is it real?
Yeah.
And to that crisis of belief. And what, when I ask, is that going to be answered? Or is that, is that a make believe story now that I need it, and asking God to open up and let us see what's blocking us. I feel like that's an answer. That's a question he loves to answer the most. When I ask for him to do something with somebody else, it might take a while. But when I tell him that's what I want for me, he's like on it. And so it's not always a fun journey, but it's a amazing, life-changing journey. Him showing us who we are, and then with that, who he is in light of who we are. And so verses like, when I'm weak, he's strong. Those verses get really, really powerful when we just can't figure ourselves out or when we get stuck.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love it. Any key takeaways? I mean, again, I could go on forever, but any key takeaways that listeners can apply walking away from this episode? How can they start to see, know, and hear themselves?
Something I often tell people to do when I first start meeting with them, and we're talking about these emotions, and I'm asking them, what are you feeling, and what does that mean? A good way to do that for yourself is to check in with yourself every day. In the car on the way to work, or when you wake up, or even when you're falling asleep, what am I glad about today? What am I sad about right now? Maybe nothing. Maybe you might say, I'm not feeling sad. That's fine. Just checking in, just checking to see what your own inventory, what's going on in there. Because we get through our days so fast and so furious, we sometimes don't even think twice about how am I doing?
Yeah.
And if somebody says, hey, how are you? The first, I'm fine, how are you? We really don't check in with our hearts. So that's the first step, I think, is get to know yourself so you can feel known by you first.
Yeah.
And then from there you can take it and see what more you want.
That's so good. And then I would think if we start to know ourselves better, then we wouldn't seek so much approval from outside influences, right? We would be just comfortable and content with ourselves first.
Yeah. I think that's the goal, is to know and accept the strengths and the weaknesses of ourselves. And then we have that to offer to other people. But when we need the approval of other people, we learned that somewhere. That came again from way back. We learned that's how you get love, is you please people. Then of course we're gonna keep trying to please people because we need to be loved.
Yes.
So, if that was a message that you learned as a child, you're just going to go on automatic pilot and do that without thinking twice. So that's a good example of something that you could look at that and say, where did that come from? How did I get started on this track?
Yeah.
And is that true? Does that make me more worthwhile or worthy if someone else claps for me when I tell them all my accomplishments? Think it through that way.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Linda, this was so wonderful. Thank you so much for this conversation. I know that it was probably the start of so many on a journey. So I'm just grateful for you. And I know we'll be sharing with our audience whenever the workshop or the weekend does happen. I definitely plan to be there. So yeah, everybody stay tuned for that. And we will for sure be sharing that out. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.